just think that the people who started doing things like this are getting older. Like I just got my first tattoo at
Hmm.
age 44,
We got
and
matching ones because we're adorable.
we got matching Lord of the Rings tattoos. And I was thinking about it, but it's just like the group of people for whom this was a cool thing has just gotten older. Like now tattoos aren't even like kind of a cool, like, deviant thing to do. They're just a thing that people do. It's sort of like a
Hmm.
non event. And I think dyeing your hair fun colors is kind of the same. Like as soon as I saw somebody come into a corporate office with a blue streak in their hair, and she was like a senior manager, a senior leader, it was like, oh, this isn't cool anymore. This is officially an everybody can do this type of thing. This has no cultural significance anymore. Once it's in, the conference room at Adobe, it's not something that stands out anymore. Like my tattoo, it's just sort of a thing.
Why
So
would you say
basically,
something so divisive yet true?
mm, well, basically, I do the cool things well past the point where they are cool. So,
Hmm.
that's how if I do something, then clearly it is no longer cool. So, although I love my tattoo and I think it's cool, I keep looking at it and not just because it itches.
What do you think? Should we make a podcast?
Let's make a podcast.
Hello, and welcome into another episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult, a neurodiversity podcast, the show where potential went to die. I'm one of your hosts, Ellie Michaels. I use she, her.
I am your other host, Jessica Michaels. I use she, they.
And today we are talking about something just
Mm,
awful.
yeah.
Um, uh, Jess, what are we talking about today? You said it and I didn't want to look.
Well, today we are talking about RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and his comments about autism. Um, and I know that you primarily, you've got your sphere of knowing all the daily ins and outs of the politics is around trans rights, and that's obviously a very busy, busy and needed sector right now. And I definitely am more on top of the autism and disability politics. So I thought I would fill you in because it is good to know what is happening without you having to read all of this and drive yourself crazy. So I thought I would give you and our listeners kind of the short version as well as my thoughts and then some of the reactions I'm seeing throughout the community.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, let's cross-pollinate and brief each other on the horrors.
Yep.
TM.
Mm-hmm. So, Secretary Kennedy recently addressed a study that the CDC put out that identified that the rate of diagnosis for autism is now 1 in 31 children, which is part of a continuing trend of a rise in the rates of autism diagnosis. And the general consensus and what the CDC noted in the report was that the increasing rate was very likely linked to improving diagnostic methods that have become more widely available. But Kennedy disagrees. And we know that in the past he has talked about the link between autism and vaccines, which has, of course, been long since debunked. But he specifically called autism a preventable disease. We know and I'm quoting, This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. It can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin. And he said that one of the
What?
things I think we need to move away from today is this ideology that the autism prevalence increases, the relentless increases, are simply artifacts of better diagnosis, better recognition, or changing diagnostic criteria. So he is, in his wisdom and expertise, he does not have a medical background. He is contradicting the findings of the CDC. And he has committed to President Trump that they will have identified the cause of autism by September, because he's putting this task force together and they are going to root out the cause so that we can eliminate the cause. He said that autism, that most of the cases of autism spectrum disorder are now severe, and that the condition destroys families. And that, of course, is false. The fact that it is not true that most of the cases of ASD are now severe. And he went on to say, these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go on a date. He told reporters.
Wait. We don't have to pay taxes now?
Right? I know. Wouldn't that be great? I definitely think we should get the autism tax reduction.
Yeah, removal.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I mean I don't have to write any more poems, but that's fine. They were never great.
uh, yeah, they'll never go on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted, and we need to recognize
What?
that we are doing this to our children.
What?
Yeah. And that reaction that you have had is the reaction of a large grouping of the autism uh, community. He did go on
And like
to
every medical professional who's ever opened a single medical textbook, maybe?
he did go on to clarify that on Sean Hannity's show that bottom line, the more than 25% who have severe autism will never go on a date, write a poem, live independently, or have a job. We need to identify the exposures that are causing this epidemic and compensate the families of the injured. So that's another thing he brought up, is that once families should be compensated because there's a cause, and once we figure out what it is, that somebody's doing something wrong, so we should compensate the families. He also said
Oh.
specifically that this is a danger facing our boys, facing young boys.
So this is just anti-vax stuff dressed up in a trench coat. Because if the cause, pardon my clairvoyance, but this magical cause and this exposure and this toxin is going to be vaccines that keep people alive, which again, thoroughly debunked, and saying that they need to give remuneration to people who are the victims of this. These are the people who don't believe in any kind of social welfare at all. This is setting this up as a governmental incentive to not get people vaccinated. Because if somebody who is vaccinated then has anybody in their family who's autistic, that's going to be a cost to the government. So it's going to incentivize government to no longer vaccinate. This is like them stopping masking, stopping testing, stopping flu shots, because
Mm-hmm.
people in blue cities are going to die sooner and in larger numbers. They were literally laughing about this at the start of COVID. Like there's recordings.
Yeah.
I'm
Many
going to throw up.
experts many experts have come out saying the things that we know, which is, we have their scientists have identified over 100 genes that play a factor in autism.
Mhm.
And we know that there's a strong genetic link. We also know that part of the rise in autism diagnoses has to do with the fact that we now diagnose girls,
Mhm.
and we didn't used to. Um, we also know that this is not simply uh, a children's issue. So there are so many things wrong with what he said. So many things wrong with what he said. And it is frightening that this is the person who is in charge of, health and human services. It seems like autism is going to be, on is a big part of his stance, and he totally discounts the fact that um, increasing awareness, increasing understanding, in better diagnostic criteria, more specific diagnostic criteria, more educated clinicians, more educated professionals like speech language pathologists and teachers, who all can have a part in this. He doesn't think that's true. He thinks that there's something like a vaccine or some mysterious environmental cause. And one of the things that has happened since these remarks were made on the 16th, it's now the 21st, is that many people, including myself, have posted or shared on social media, specifically addressing the comments about not being able to play baseball, to write a poem, to pay taxes, etc. Um, I do have an expletive in this poem, but I am happy to share it if you think that if you would like to hear what I wrote.
Yeah, let's close with that.
Okay, close with that. Um, so
So this is insane. This is literally insane, and it's something that's come up a number of times. And I kept wanting to say it's a side effect of fascist and authoritarian rule, but it's not a side effect, it's a main effect. If you talk to historians and political science people, they will tell you that the core tenet of fascism is absolute black and white thinking. There is good and there is bad, and that is it. And what is good is what's good for the party, and what is bad is what's bad for the party. Doesn't matter if it's actually good, doesn't matter if it's actually bad. The perception and how it affects the sitting authority is it. So, kind of historian Dan Carlin always gives the example World War One, Germany's army versus World War Two, Germany's army, who would win in a fight? And the answer is World War One, Germany's army. To be a high-ranking officer in World War One, you needed to be good at your job first and foremost. To be a high-ranking officer in World War Two, it was much more important that you were loyal to the party and you espoused whatever crazy crap that they said was happening and supported their Aryan doctrine. The same thing has happened here, where the party that took control ran on anti-vax nonsense. And so you don't get unqualified people in positions of power, you get anti-qualified people in positions of power. This is the same as having someone as the head of the CDC or the World Health Organization who vehemently rejects germ theory and
mhm.
is like firing everyone who doesn't believe in spontaneous generation of maggots. So you get this just absolutely unhinged anti-scientific because again, the establishment is bad. The science is bad. Anybody who says anything bad about what the leader is doing is bad. And even if that person is like a firefighter putting out a fire, that person is bad and needs to be stopped. So all of the science is against this guy, but science has been demonized as part of the insane rhetoric of the party that's consolidated power. And so you get completely unhinged things. The guy he's also talked about how like we're addicted to antidepressants, and
And
we're going to be
ADHD
put in
meds.
rehab camps,
Hmm.
which sounds
With
ridiculous
nutrition and farming.
until you notice that, you know, hundreds of people, several of them at least, American citizens, have been deported and put into camps.
Well, and deported is a messy word because deported makes it sound like these people have gone through due process
Oh
and
yeah, no,
had
okay. They haven't
hearings and, they've been
they've
forcefully criminally evicted.
they've been deported in the sense that Jews, gypsies, and queers were deported from Germany to Auschwitz. Because remember, Auschwitz wasn't in Germany. So El
Mm-hmm.
Salvador, oh, that's not here. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Rules don't apply here. This is, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
puke.
Well, I do want to talk a little bit about the community response
Please do.
because autism, as we know, autism itself is a spectrum.
Mhm.
And that means that there are a wide range of different experiences that people have with autism. Whether it's, we have, of course, people like us who found out that they were autistic late in life. We have people diagnosed as children, everything in between when it comes to age. We have, now we have women and girls being part of this conversation when they didn't used to be. But there's also this split between high level support needs and low support needs, which is, I think, the most recent, and best terminology to describe folks on the autism spectrum. But it is definite that there are people who do need 24/7 care and who are definitely non speaking, perhaps nonverbal. There are people who will require support and care for their entire lives. And that can be one of the hard things about talking about autism is how do you represent all of those experiences when you are talking about autism or when you're talking about what the needs of the community are, because the needs of the community can vary. Um, when these comments came out, a lot of people, as I mentioned, talked about that there are very many autistic people who can do all of these things that he intimated that autistics can't do. He again said later that it's this 25% he's referring to, but I don't necessarily trust anything he says because so much of it is wrong. And I think
He's a sociopath.
some of the community response to the response was saying that, hey, you can't by pointing out autistics who don't fit into his worst case scenario, by highlighting autistics who do have jobs and do play baseball and do write poems, you are being ableist. And you are being ableist by putting the focus on the people within the autism community who can, quote unquote, contribute to society in those key points. Like, these people have worth because they pay taxes, because they hold jobs, because they do these things. And you are then ableist against people who cannot do those things and who do have high support needs and who may need lifetime care and things like that. And that narrative bothers me a lot. Um, I acknowledge the differences in everybody's experience. I can speak from my own point of view about my experience. I don't think that invalidates others because, to me, speaking out against misinformation benefits everybody in the group. I think when lies like this come out, any bit of untruth means that he loses credibility in every area. So highlighting places where he is flat out wrong is important, regardless of the group that they, that it has to do with, because pointing out lack of knowledge or lies in one area of the topic means he doesn't have a foot to stand on when it comes to any of us. So being wrong about some of us invalidates his opinions about any of us. So I do think it's important to speak up about people anywhere on the spectrum and discredit him wholeheartedly because he's not an authority. And I don't think speaking out about one group means that you are not considering another group. And I don't consider it ableist to do that.
It's not ableist at all. That's correcting someone who is willfully spreading lies and dangerous misinformation because he's wrong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there are some of us who will face those challenges and who will miss out on things. But there's also a bunch of us who won't. And there's a bunch of us in the middle. And it's, like we said, a spectrum. But again, that's a nuanced and something with shades of gray. Autism can't be good sometimes and bad sometimes and neutral other times. It has to be good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Those are your only options. If you saw the second Dune movie, the planet that the Harkonnens are from, Gedi Prime, it was shot with, monochromatic IR cameras because the whole point of their society is that it's completely fascistic. There is good and there is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So that's why the entire planet is in black and white. That's what that was meaning. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what this is meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's eugenics. It's back to eugenics.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, his entire point is that we are not productive. You know, we do not produce further wealth for, the people with the capital already, and therefore we don't count. And saying, well, that's not true. That's not ableist. Saying that, no, this never happens. That's ableist.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find it ironic that this is happening at the same time we are, say we, I mean the federal government is looking at eliminating funding for disabled children to receive a public education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly makes our work more important
Mm-hmm.
because I think more people need to be aware and understand for more people to be able to see and say this is wrong, this is misinformation, this is ridiculous. And but at the same time it is disheartening and it is hard to get up and hear this and see this and have these discussions over and over and over and over again. It's hard to want to keep going when it seems like, I mean, not to put too fine of a point on it, but it seems like you're beating your head against the wall. And I have experience. Like,
Thanks. I needed that. So, so like I said, this is straight up eugenics. This is a different flavor of the same tactic that's been used on trans people this entire time, where they want us to stop existing. That's
mm-hmm,
the whole point. They were going to go after the gays, but there's too much support. Well, there's only like 1 million trans adults in the country, so let's just go after them. And you throw out all of these catch-22 laws that make it so dangerous to be transgender in public that you effectively just can't exist in public, and
mm-hmm,
thus you go away. If you treat all autistic people as needing super high levels of care and support, and then You legislate that they can't get help getting a public education. You maybe legislate that they can't be granted a job with that involves funds from the government because they're not capable or they can't have security clearances. And you just flick away at all of these points where we can exist in public and where we've had some kind of support to do that, then we just go away. And they can turn around and go, look, we solved autism. There's no more autistic people, except for in those camps. And there's, a bunch of them in there, and the camp isn't very large. It's a very, the, the population is kind of concentrated in those camps. And thus we go away. The same way that Nazi Germany sterilized anybody with a mental illness and just made them go away.
Mm-hmm.
We say to these days, like, oh, at least they made the trains run on time. They didn't. They didn't. The trains did not run on time. Fascism is really bad at running anything. But they said every day so loudly and with the consequence of getting shot if you didn't also say it that the trains were running on time.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter that they're not. The trains are running on time, and that's what we say, and that's the truth.
It's exhausting. It is. It is exhausting. And, this is, it's like saying you, the way you exist is not, it's not good enough. So we're going to make sure that we change you because we're more comfortable with that.
It's not even it's not even change. He's not talking about change or affect or like providing better support or improving social infrastructure or making healthcare easier to access. He's saying that we exist because of a toxin and we're going to remove that toxin and therefore we will stop existing. There won't be any more new autistic people. And the ones that
Mm-hmm.
exist will just kind of we'll push them off to the side so we're not such a burden.
Mm-hmm.
This is just eugenics and extermination again.
I think, from the community standpoint, what one thing that I think the community as a whole, where no matter where you are on the spectrum, dignity, you deserve dignity. And we're fighting for dignity. And that is for me, that is for somebody who, is whether you're ASD1, ASD3, anywhere on the spectrum, you deserve dignity. You deserve resources. You deserve help and tools and support and acceptance. And you deserve a society that isn't burdened by your presence and doesn't demand that you put into in order to be able to get the benefit of, because that's not what we do as people. You know, I don't
Hmm.
deserve more resources because I pay taxes.
Hmm.
I don't deserve more dignity because I pay taxes. To use those things and to highlight those particular things, even if you go back and say, oh, well, I was talking about the 25%, that doesn't really matter
No, he
because
wasn't.
everybody, everybody deserves to have support. It's it's infuriating. It's infuriating. I
Hmm.
just and this idea that it's a preventable disease to me is way to put more guilt on parents. Like you could have prevented this, but you didn't.
It's
You
the guilt is
sucked.
there to incentivize the parents to not vaccinate. That's why. That's what this is. That's what all of this is. That's what he's been saying for years at this point. And
All of this money and all of these resources that are going to find this magical cause and this magical cure, all of that could be used to make the lives of autistic people better.
No, not allowed. There's there's been there's been a general split in American politics for getting on about 60, 70 years from around the civil rights movement's inception. And the two main philosophies are either people should suffer less or people should suffer more. And that's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
People should suffer less. We should throw money at problems. We should help people. If someone is unhoused, we should house them. It's cheap, it's effective, and you don't need to be completely sober to be deserving of help. Or people deserve more suffering. If you're unhoused, you should be put in jail, housed that way, and much more expensively. But the point is that you deserve the suffering and you deserve more suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just people deserve more suffering.
There's also an intersectionality issue here, which is one of the reasons why you and I um, make sure we download on these topics, because 1 in 3 LGBTQIA plus adults has is estimated to have a disability, including over half of transgender adults.
Yep.
So we're not talking just about trans politics here. We're not just talking about disability rights. We essentially have, you're pulling, this is another way to pull support from the LGBTQ community, because
Mm-hmm.
such a large percentage of these of disability uh, politics affects this group. So, to think that they are not linked in any way is is a fallacy. This is another way that we are attacking a marginalized community.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, when you look at autistic Black children and negative interactions with police and shootings by police, this is something that more greatly impacts Black and Brown children and adults and LGBTQ children and adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important to keep in mind. Sometimes they think it's spaces like mine that have become the latest and loudest champions in a lot of cases, because a lot of us do have large professional platforms. We are able to communicate in public in a way that many people can easily listen to and respond to and connect with. Um, but my face is not the face of autism by any stretch of the imagination. And there's so much at stake here, and so much at play beyond just what it says on its face, that we have to be aware of these things and we have to be fighting against them, because we're not just fighting for us and for autism. We're fighting battles for many groups of people who really need the help and support in any way that they can. So please, please, please contact senators and representatives, write letters, go to protests if you can, because these things are bigger than just the autism community. And there's much more at stake, even in this big issue.
And if it hasn't quite clicked yet, these are purges. These are classic fascist authoritarian purges. Getting rid of everybody in the government who might have anything to do with DEI, that's a purge. Core main tenet of this administration and this ideology is white supremacy. Cis, straight, white supremacy. And so anybody who isn't that is removed from a position of power. and then eventually removed from society, removed from public life, removed from existence. One of their proposed things is saying that anything transgender counts as pornography, which then means that I can't exist on Facebook. That's a violation of their TOS. I can't be near a child. That's being a sex offender. This is the same thing. This
Mm-hmm.
is driving us out of public life. This is driving us out of places of power where we can advocate for ourselves. And it's a purge. And that's it. I'm going to close us out with your.
Yes, I wrote a poem from my perspective um, in regards to RFK's comments. It's called Today I Will. Today I will autistically see my autistic clients to help them manage the world autistically. Autistically script and record a podcast about books that I read autistically. Autistically balance the books and accounts for the business I run autistically. Autistically write jokes that I tell on stages for laughs autistically. Autistically struggle to communicate with people who say they include everyone autistically. Autistically apply for job after job that won't hire me as I act too autistically. Autistically scream at injustices and slights coming at my people autistically. Autistically protest state sanctioned hate towards group after group autistically. Autistically pay my autistic taxes because I'm not a billionaire autistically. Autistically weep as transgender souls are persecuted and shamed autistically. Autistically love my autistic wife as we try to just live our lives autistically. Autistically say from my autistic soul, RFK, sir, fuck you, autistically.
Well, I think that'll just about wrap it up for this episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult. Jess, where can people find out more about you?
You can find me at coachjessicamichaels.com. And we have a new support slash networking group that we will be holding for neurodivergent, that's neurodivergent professionals community, open to anybody, uh, neurodivergent or not. And that'll be hosted every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. So check us out there.
Until next time, no one is coming to save us. We have to save us because that's always who has. Take care of each other out there.
Bye.